Thank you very much, Riv. So LMQ now 4-0, guaranteed first place, perfect super week. There's a few teams that have done that. They tend to do really well by the end of the North American LCS.
It's a good sign for a team if they go undefeated in the first Super Week. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Now, let's get to this game, though, because this was really interesting. And let's get to the very beginning of how LMQ really got control of this game. Yes, it was the mid lane, but I would argue that it's even more important was the jungler's effect on that mid lane.
Yeah.
Now, No Name, he's the one who makes the first move. This is back to my theme of the day, reactive playstyle versus taking the initiative. And we actually have a clip for you guys for the first blood, because No Name comes for the classic gank from a jungler. Get your double buffs, go gank somewhere. And because Voyboy is Kale, up in the mid lane here, it's pretty neutral territory, actually. They're both standing just as far up in the lane. Voyboy right now is actually up 2 CS, but that's just because he has 2 CS more in the lane here. But let's take a look at the gank here, roll through the clip. No Name does take the initiative. He brings his ward to hop to, gets right in there, and they don't overextend into turret range until they're sure it is going to be a kill. Yes, he does miss the Q, and then he knows that Dominate hasn't shown up yet for the counter gank, so he feels safe then flashing in for it. So there's not going to be any turnaround. And that's the difference between Dominate going for farming one more camp and No Name taking the initiative to get that kill. From then, that chains for the whole game.
Yeah.
Because he got Xiao ahead in that lane, Xiao actually is able to force Voyboy out of the lane later and forces Dominate to come out of the jungle again to farm up the lane, and Xiao kills Dominate. So Dominate actually dies again for the same mistake there, and it just kind of chains all the way through the entire game.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because just the fact that Xiao is a little bit bigger snowballed the entire game. You saw him 1v1 in Quas over on the right-hand side, like under his turret. You saw it like 1 minute, like waiting at the white camp. It was like, is he going to show up? He's going to show up. Finally, he just goes and 1v1s the guy. And that kept repeating. Normally, Jax is so good at killing AD carries. He went after Triforce Rune King, went Randu and Zoman. It's like, Kalen's going to have a hard time fighting a Jax. And then when you had that one big Baron fight, well, Xiao just destroys him because he's got like a Negatron cloak for defense, and he's like, well, I'm level 18, 350 CS, got 2 kills, and just blows the guy up. And so Quas never gets to do anything in team fights. He can split push, that's fine. And then that keeps kind of happening over and over again. Voyboy has to build this cooldown reduction build and like really reactive. He maxes heal second. He's trying to like play around with the ultimate, whatnot, but like you've got a long cooldown on Mikhail's Crucible, you've got a longer cooldown on the Kayle ulti, and Xiao keeps forcing something to be burned, something to be burned, something to be burned, and then when his stuff's back up, they just fight.
Exactly. I mean, this is literally the best example of snowball, because it starts with just one gank in the mid lane, and Xiao turns that into forcing the mid lane away. I get another kill, drawing out the jungler, and everything just goes in Xiao's hands at that point. He has control of the map. They get full vision coverage of the entire map, and he does a great job of using that small lead to control the pace of the entire game.
Yeah, and then occasionally LMQ oversteps slightly. We talked about that in the pregame. Are they going to go for a little bit too much? We have a replay 26 and a half minutes in, actually, if you can pull that one up. And if I understand correctly, it's one that actually Curse does pretty well in. So you're going to see that this was the game, right? Before I was talking about Xiao would go in and try to get Void to blow his ulti on something. And then, if LMQ did it smart, they would disengage and try again in about 20 seconds when their cooldowns are back. This is an example of LMQ getting their burst nullified by a Void ulti, but then being stuck in the fight, whether it's because of an Evelyn embrace or a Tipper or something like that from Curse. They can actually force the engage if Voidboy blocks it, and they'll be okay. So let's roll the clip out and watch how it begins. So No Name gets a Q down. They see Dominate's kind of low, so Xiao loses most of his burst. Xpecial gets the flash Tibbers, and that is what Curse has to do, is they have to play in that 15-second window. At this point, it's just a simple 5v4. Quas gets to fight alone in the back line, so he actually pulls the Silly and Moore's attention for a long time as they chase down a little bit more, which means Curse gets a 2-on-1. They get a 2-for-1 kill. Because again, they play in that short window where they actually did go on equal footing. Void got his ulti out, and then, well, the block with no cooldown's not very useful. Voidboy with his Eon is actually going to do something there in the fight, and you saw that.
And it was a planned counterattack from Curse. It was a well-planned counterattack. They were all grouped up. 5 members of Curse LMQ were spread out. They were not ready for this. Talisman of Ascension into stun immediately. The second time that Curse wanted to make Xiao pay for going so aggressive.
And things like that are what makes it hard for LMQ. This is why they played a slower game, is they're like, they know a straight-up 5-on-5 with a full engage is a lost fight. And you saw that. Like, even with a 6,000 gold lead for the entire game, they have to go in for one rotation, pull back, and then go when their cooldowns are back up. And that was why it was so hard for them, is Curse was playing safe, Curse was playing behind their turrets. That's why we saw a slower game. Yes, LMQ's aggressive, but they recognize when it's a bad fight. Every single time they've actually died for something, with the one exception getting counter-engaged on, it's been a good fight. 3v5 at Baron was still a good fight. Right? All that kind of stuff works. They identify, well, this one won't, so they have to wait it out.
I like how both teams actually changed their tactics throughout the game.
Yeah.
So we have one last clip to pull up for you guys. This is the end game fight, and we want to take another look at how LMQ actually finished this one out.
Yeah. So to set this one back up again, Strywise Shao goes in to blow Voyboy's cooldowns. Then the full team backs up, waits for the intervention to come off, and then goes back in. Also keep in mind at this point, the Mikhail's Crucible from Xpecial is also on cooldown. That's a 2-3 minute cool right there. So it's something that takes a while to get back up. And when LMQ can time these, they know they can actually win a fight.
Also, take a look at the positioning from Xpecial on the outside. Trying to come in for the back here so he can get those priority targets. He wants to, in the best possible scenario, stun Xiao Xiao and Vasily. So let's roll through the clip and see how it turns out. They get Voyboy's shield down, and from that point you can see Voyboy walks forward. He's like, hey, this is my biggest tool. We have to engage this fight. We have to fight now. LMQ do exactly as you said. They back out, and then No Name takes the opportunity to kick a very squishy Kale into the rest of the team, and LMQ clean up for the win.
So lack of counter-engage for Curse, definitely hurtful there. Unfortunate for them. That didn't quite work out.
It's really hard to pull that off because Curse know that their comp relies on really, really accurate split-second timing windows. Kale ulti and Flash Tibbers. They have to coordinate so well if they want to pull off a victory versus this LMQ squad.
Yeah, and think about the fact that their upfront burst not nearly as high, right? Where like LeBlanc could one-shot Jax, the cooldown boots, like attack speed, slightly focused build on Kale's not going to one-shot a Shyvana or a Lee Sin. So the frontline can go make moves and not get burned for it. And you saw that from the knockback.
That was the last thing I wanted to bring up. Against LeBlanc, that gets that fed early, really the only defense are Banshee Veils because they're going to block a spell. She's already got spell penetration, so even resistances aren't going to do much for you. You see Jax get melted anyway. They weren't able to complete the Banshee Veils in time.
So one thing I want to think about strategically, actually, is if you fight against a Jax, is LeBlanc good enough to kill it? Very little AoE damage, meaning the E's not going to do much. And the fact that Jax builds 2 offensive items, LeBlanc has the damage core before Jax starts building a Banshee. And when we saw, again, Quas had a rough time because of this. This is something I want to keep tracking. Is that kind of a counter pick, like a cross-lane counter pick? Will it work well in fight?
Definitely depends on how the early game starts out, too, because top laners are getting denied a lot of farm nowadays.
Yeah, the 2v0s are hitting top laners. Well, we're just getting warmed up here. We've got more to go. After the break, we'll roll right into our next match, Cloud9 versus Complexity. We'll be back here with more League.